First, I'll just take this the basic idea of God or goddess, whatever it is. Um, First, God is a form of or a balance between fear and hope. That is how the early humans conceived God to be. It is a fear of a destruction and a hope of progress. So nature was this fear as well as the hope. Thunder could ruin their livelihood, and proper rain could bring them agriculture. Disastrous fire can burn them out. Controlled fire can give them prosperity with respect to food. So everything they saw there is a balance between fear and hope, and they thought this balance was the God. So the earliest known gods were from nature, basically rain, thunder, and even the wild. So slowly, as they moved into hunting and they started using weapons, the culture of worshipping their weapons as a god also arose. Then mostly the gods we have today have arisen after the advent of agriculture and civilization. So once they were able to settle in a place and they were able to reap the benefits of the nature in the given place, then we have all the gods which we have today arising then. So the first gods of the agricultural people were always goddesses, especially mothers. So if you go into the earliest uh, sculptures across the world, the earliest available sculptures across the world, it is primarily mothers uh, or women with a explicit reference to their uh, women being a woman, that is their breast and their female lower parts. It is because they felt uh, the earth as a mother, where the the mother fed the kids with their products or with their agriculture, and she also gave fertility from her own soil, which was like equivalent to a childbirth. So we are consistently seeing this theme echoing across all places in the mod in the civilized world 10,000 years ago. So I'll just go into the basics of it. I'll just give you a basic overview. So let me use my pointer. Okay. So this part here is called the Levantine. So this is where the modern agriculture or the stable agriculture formed, and this spread throughout the world. So from here, people started moving everywhere else. So around 10,000 BC, we find strong agriculture emerging out of here. Around 8,000 BC, we are seeing agriculture booming out in Indus Valley. So basically, we see three great civilizations booming out in this area, starting out from Levantine. One is in Egypt, one is in Mesopotamia, other is in Indus Valley. Now, based on our geographical limitations today, we see India as a country, and we don't see even Pakistan as a part of closer to India. For us, Egypt, Mesopotamia, or Turkey or Greece is a very, very far away land. But say 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, if you just tilt your map slightly to 90 degrees, you will figure out that from Greece to India is a continuous piece of land where people consistently moved. Like the movement between Greece to India was probably much easier than crossing the Vindhyas and going down to South India. So this movement was continuously happening. So this had a lot of impact. So I'll just show how that comes up later. But I'll just show some of the earliest of figures we have discovered across the world. One is in Megargar. It is in present day Afghanistan Pakistan border, considered to be the predecessor of Indus Valley civilization. So basically, you see primarily female figures, and here you have a female with a kid, and you generally see that there is a protruding breast to signify a motherly nature of these women. This one here is from Turkey. This is from around 6000 BC, that is 8,000 years ago. Again, a woman, and interestingly, she is sitting with two cats or two tigers. We do not know, or two lions. We do not know what exactly it is, but it is a cat family animal. So the earliest available goddesses are primarily women. The sculptures, earliest available sculptures, are also women. Then slowly, let's move into Indus Valley civilization around 3,000 years ago. So now we see stylistically this woman is getting modernized. She is having hairstyles, she is having ornaments, and but primarily the features are still remains the same. Femininity that is protruding out everywhere. So I'm just showing how the world saw the woman as goddess across different cultures. What you see is in the Greek area. This one is in Iran. So again, similar structures. This is in Turkey. This is in Iran. This is somewhere in Turkey again. So primarily Turkey, um, Iran, and India. Pretty much everywhere we are seeing the same sculptures. And this is in the Greek area, Greek island areas. So again, the earliest sculptures available are women. So as we go more down the line, both in Iran and Syria, we start seeing a culture where the woman is now pointing her breast, and these kind of sculptures come up. So this is primarily to indicate the fertility of the goddess, where she is trying to feed her children. So it is to portray that Mother Nature is feeding her children, and because of her fertility only, the world is being happy. That is basically, they imagine that the agriculture that is coming out of the soil, the produce of the agriculture, is a feeding of the nature, Mother Goddess to them. So that's why pretty much you see this symbology across all of India. And even today, if you go to all agricultural societies in India, we call our goddesses Amman. This Amman primarily stems out from the word Amma, which is basically mother. So all agricultural societies across the world viewed their goddess as a mother. So even today, if you go to villages, the most popular deities are not your organized religions, but it is from these localized agricultural deities called Ammans or Amma. So that culture started probably around 8,000 or 10,000 years ago. Then this is another interesting one. So across the world, we are also seeing sculptures with their arm pointed out. I do not know what this really means, but these sculptures are there across the world. We are seeing it in Indus Valley, we are seeing it in Cyprus, we are seeing it in Iran, and pretty much this form, pretty much cross, is now later exported into the Christianity. So this already popular iconography is replaced from the mother, it is replaced to Jesus, and it is taken over in Christianity. So pretty much you see, this is around 5,000 years ago. You see this this iconography of stretched hand, or Tamil வந்து அரவணைத்தல், a mother waiting to hug or something like that. So you see that iconography across the world, primarily in Mesopotamia, Iran, in what they call BMAC, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and probably even Indus. So across all these, this iconography was very famous, but now this has literally become a Christian iconography where Jesus is on the crucifixion. Still, even after the fall of Indus Valley and all these bronze cultures, still these iconographies prevailed in India. So these were the goddesses of Mathura period in Kushan dynasty. This is around 300 BC to 300 AD. This is in Adicha Nallur. This is around 1000 BC to 600 BC. And this is in Uttar Pradesh, again, Mathura 200 BC. So this culture of mother goddess, independent of any religion, existed even after advent of organized religions in India. And we are seeing this culture primarily in the Gangetic Plains and Deccan and Tamil Nadu, we are seeing these independent goddesses, which is probably an impact of the older tribalistic society or the Indus Valley spread from Indus to South India and the Gangetic Plains. The other most important goddess forms which we are seeing is probably the childbirth or fertility symbols. So though it is gross to see these symbols today, across the world we are seeing this. This is in Egypt, this is in Syria, this is in Cyprus. So these do not explicitly show a childbirth, but show a pregnant woman in a position to give a childbirth. In Cyprus, we are seeing a direct childbirth. And this one is Lajja Gauri. This was a independent goddess which got integrated into Hinduism. This was very famous in Gujarat and Western India, the places where Indus Valley existed. So the Lajja Gauri is a symbolism of the childbirth. So the next, we are seeing childbirth as an important um, criteria for the goddess. Probably the childbirth, because of the number of infant mortality, these could have become an iconography in those point of time where the child and giving birth to a child itself is projected as a goddess, or a female for giving birth to a child is considered to be a goddess. The next step that we are seeing in this evolution is that we are seeing woman holding on to a baby or breastfeeding her baby as the ritualistic sculpture object. So we are also seeing this across the world. This is in Indus Valley, this is in Megargurk, this is in Cyprus, this is again in Cyprus, this is in Egypt, and eventually this symbolism still survives today in Christianity as Mary and Jesus. So some of the old iconographies which happened or started 10,000 years ago are still continuing in the major religions today, though they don't believe in these female only goddess structure, but still these iconographies still continue on. Here we are seeing Mary with the Jesus, which is a straight lift from the older iconography, probably originating somewhere in Indus Valley. We are not sure, but the earliest sculptures we are seeing of this kind comes from Indus Valley. So these iconographies are floating around continuously in this world and never are not ceasing to vanish. So then slowly we are moving away from these mother or agricultural based society. As civilization increases, we are seeing that the goddess is now associated with uncontrollable power, a power that can cause death, power that is necessary for war, power that is necessary for victory. We see as a now again the goddess is now representing the two things. One is fertility or the hope and fear. So now we are slowly seeing that the mother goddess is moving away from the hope and fertility into a new domain of war and death. So we are seeing the goddesses now being represented as a fearful deities and as a representation of war. We are seeing this happening across the world. We are seeing it in Syria, we are seeing it in Egypt, we are seeing it in Iran. So similar structure would have happened in India as well. We do not have any explicit iconography, but from knowing we have so many different varieties of goddess, fearful goddesses like Kotrava in Sangam literature, Durga, Kali in northern literatures, we can assume that the same thing happened in India as well. Even in Indus Valley, we do have one symbol of a goddess who is a half human, half animal, fighting with a tiger in Indus Valley as well. So we see this shift happening as the civilization grows, and there are wars and things which need blessings of a god in victory. So we see a slow shift from goddess from a motherly nature to a warrior nature. And as we see this shift, we are seeing slowly the iconography changing, where the goddess are now representing multiple things. And this is an example from Syria. Pretty much these kind of iconography was later followed in our Hindu sculptures as well. So slowly we see the animals getting associated with the goddesses. So we see a winged goddess in Syria, which literally became the fairies of the Western world. And we see snake goddesses that is arising in Iran and Syria and Greece. Similarly, we have snake goddesses in India, Mariamman, Naga, I mean, the Puttu and all these concepts are basically signifying the snake goddesses. We are seeing goddesses for bulls, and slowly in the same pattern, we see goddesses of fish. Technically, we are seeing this originating in Iran as well as in India. One you are seeing here is in North India. This one is in around Iran, Syria area. And similarly, in Tamil Nadu, we have the fish goddess of Madurai Meenakshi, though the representation has changed. She was goddess of Pandyas. The Pandyas flags were two fish. Pandyas were initially, their capital was in Kurke and not in Madurai. Kurke was on the sea. And their goddess was Meenakshi. The names signify that she was initially a fish goddess before they moved inland and she became Madurai Meenakshi. So we have now goddesses of snake, goddesses of fish, and slowly now we are moving into other animals. Here we are seeing goddesses on dragons in Iran and Turkey. Then slowly we see a shift to goddesses on the lion. So this happens outside of India, primarily in India, especially in Indus Valley. We have representation of animals of all kinds. We have unicorns, we have rhinoceros, we have donkeys, we have tigers, we have literally every animal that was present in Indus Valley in the Indus Hills, but we do not see a single lion. And even in the old Dravidian roots, we do not have any clear-cut root word for lion. So most likely the Indus Valley people had never encountered a lion. So the lion symbologies we have as of today have all come from Iran, the people who have migrated from Iran and other parts of the world. So the earliest lion sculpture, lion and goddesses have been continuously seen in what we call as the area between Iran to Greece, the area which I showed you in my first slide, there where I told you there is a continuous movement. We see across all these places, goddess with a lion. So we see this scene trending all over. So I've shown you various coins, various iconographies. Here you see a lion and a goddess. This is in Susa, which is in Iran. This is in Syria, a god with lions. This is again around Syria, Iran, a goddess with a lion. So these seal impressions are again coming from Elam, and Elam is in Iran, and proto-Elamite seals. And finally, this is how it enters into India. So this is a goddess called Nanaya. She is actually a Greek representation of these old goddesses from the Near East, or Iran and Iran Syria area. So as the Greeks, basically Alexander invades and comes through different parts of the Iran plateau and comes into Indus Valley and conquers the world. Then he brings all the Near Eastern gods along with them and they settle in an area called BMAC, Bacteria Marginia area, that is around today's Afghanistan, Turkmenistan area. So in that area, they bring all their Greek goddesses as well as the Near Eastern goddesses into a place closer to India. So that is how this god Nanaya, who is represent or combined representation of all the Near Eastern goddesses of lion, comes in a Greek form into closer to India. And similarly, we see Egyptian goddesses also riding the lion, and we see multiple representation in various Egyptian sculptures as well. And this is in Greece. There is a god called Sibyl who is having a Simhavahana, or the lion chariot. So again, the lion and the goddesses is spread across the world of the ancient times, except in India. So everywhere else, we see a precedent of these goddesses. Then slowly, these goddesses eventually come into India. How? Basically because of Kushans. Who are Kushans? Kushans actually started out in China, somewhere around here. They were chased out of China, and they conquered the area which was earlier occupied by the Greeks in the Bactria, present day Afghanistan. From there, they were basically more lenient towards Buddhist, but they also adapted to the Indian gods as well as the Greek gods. So they brought in a new fusion of Greek, Indian, and Buddhist sculptures, and probably they were the first kings in India to have iconography of all the gods. So most likely we are seeing the first Shiva version, first Durga version, first Buddha version sculptures that is available today are coming from the Kushans. So these Kushans extended from present day Afghanistan till Mathura. So most of the iconography we see as of today have come from them. So probably they were the first rulers who brought in Nanaya, who is a Greek version of the lion goddesses, and brought it into Mathura. So in Mathura, we see the first version of Durga, who's probably a hybrid of Indian war goddesses mixed with the Near East lion, and we eventually have the synchronized version of the goddesses Durga, who's probably indigenous in nature, probably riding a tiger, we do not know earlier, but eventually she is riding a lion, and that representation is progressing as of today. So the culture which existed all through the world in the olden days, that is the from Greece to Indus Valley, shaped up a lot of our gods and the iconography today. When I mean gods, I'm not saying that we imported these gods, but rather these gods were present, but when we wanted to visually represent them, we borrowed some of these ideas which were already present. See, what I have seen over the last 10,000 years, seeing all the artifacts, is that a lot of the iconography we have are recycled, because in some way or other, people have some psychological attention to these iconographies. So these iconographies are getting continuously recycled across the world, and it eventually we are taking something that is popular and using it for our own gods and goddesses. So eventually, the goddesses riding the lion is come into India and is staying in India for the last 2000 years, or probably close to 3000 years. So this ends my very high brief on the goddesses and the lion.